Shalom, brother and sister truth seekers. I just wanted to do a quick video on Sundial tips and fly through the highlights of this document I put together. This document pretty much has a quick summary checklist of, I think, all the most important things you need to keep in mind when collecting Sundial data. I'm just going to fly through it here in this video, but if you check the link in the description below this video, you'll see a link for a shared Dropbox folder that will open you up to a directory that looks like this. And if you simply go into this tips for confirming an Equinox event with Sundials folder, click on that, you will find the document that I'm going to be going through right here, this PDF document, and that's a publicly available folder that you should be able to download and get into there. So yeah, if you want to check out anything and take a closer look. So I just have a few videos here where I'm kind of explaining what the sun is doing on the day of an equinox, tracing these three different patterns of heaven, the celestial equator being the straight line down the middle, and the sun riding on these different curves during different times of year. But it's when the sun hits the celestial equator that we're most interested in. So if you want more explanation for what exactly the sun is doing, this is a good video you can watch about that. And then this is just an example of what we're getting ready to see with the sundial. That you're going to have an object sticking out of a board or something, and you're going to have a flat recording surface, and you're going to want to watch the tip of that object. The sun is going to shine on that and cast a shadow down, and you're going to want to look at the tip of the shadow at like every hour of the day. You're just going to want to make a mark where that tip was as it moves across the board during the course of the day. I think, yeah, this is actually an old video, must be an old video that goes through some of these tips, but I just wanted to show you. Let's see if I can show you a picture of this in live action. By the way, this is the Facebook group that I will be posting live feeds to. And when I say live, I mean any sundial data that I come across, I'm going to instantly throw it to this group, so you can stay abreast of things that are happening rather quickly in this group. I mean, people are encouraged to share their sundial data directly to this group. I will organize it later in another Dropbox folder by date, so people can zero in. So again, if you click on the link in the description below this video, you'll come to this directory. You'll want to click on the appropriate year, and then you'll want to click on the appropriate month. And right now there's only 1 day of data in there from a few days ago. I believe True Seeker from Maui was practicing, and I just got a picture of his data here. Oops, wrong button. Hide that. So this is what he was collecting recently. But this is kind of the format that you'll find everyone's data, and it'll be organized like this, because sometimes the Facebook group can get a little, things can get lost. It's just like a free flow live update feed, and if you're not watching, things could get important things can get washed away. So I do organize it by date in this folder directory, so people can go back and double check exactly when the straight line was seen and stuff by date. But yeah, this is just a nice place to get a live feed. People will be sending in their data, and I'll just throw it to this group, and I'll say straight line hasn't been seen yet, or a straight line was seen in Australia or Africa or wherever, and people are encouraged to share their data to this group directly. But I just wanted to show you a couple samples here of what I was just talking about with this pattern, these patterns that we see over the course of the year. So the sun is shining on the tip of your sundial and creating these patterns. So this is an example. Somebody really cool set this up. So they've got the recording surface, they got their little nail. It doesn't have to be at any specific angle, but they mounted a post here and a camera that is taking a picture every hour of the day. And so essentially it's showing you what you're going to see on your board. Every hour of the day, you're going to see your screw or your nail move just a little bit every hour. And what we're interested in is the very tip of the shadow that's being cast. So they look. I was speaking with this the gentleman who's kind of sending in this data, and it sounded like they didn't get such early morning and late evening points for this spread of data. They're going to be doing that, and we'll go over that in the tips document. But so what you're seeing here isn't a huge spread of data. It's actually interesting to see right there. You can see that this shadow looks ghosted. That's interesting. That's the first time I'm noticing that. But but this is essentially what you're going to see. And so it's important for us to know what time of day was that first mark of the day that you made and what time of day was the last mark of the day. And he did something that was pretty high tech as well. I think he's got a video somewhere. Yeah, look at this. So this is like what it's going to look like live moving across your board. And I think he does something where he like flips it to a negative. So he's those ghosting shadows. Yeah, maybe he was able to define it. Like that was really cool. So that last point of the day was ghosted out. You could hardly see it, but because he was able to flip to the negative, was this not going to open up for me? All big. Sorry, I'm not a Facebook guru here. I would have thought. Oh, this is the one. Large. Maybe? Okay. Yeah, I just want to try and pause that real quick at that moment. Look at that last walk. Ah! Right there. See, he was able to like look at the contrast of this image, and he's able to get a nice sharp point, even for that one that looked like it was ghosting out. So look how well it's defined here. But if we go to the picture, you can see it wasn't that clear. So that's really nice that he's able to do that. That's really high tech, but hopefully, hopefully you guys won't have to deal with ghosted shadows. This, as you can see here, his setup there, it looks like there must be trees and leaves, and the sun was kind of shining through an obscured field of view, and so that's probably maybe why some of these marks weren't as bright. Maybe so. That's an important tip. You're going to want to make sure you're collecting data in a place that gets nice clear sunlight, and when you get your mark, you're going to want to make sure it's, if at all possible, it's not ghosted out like this. But this is still cool. Anyway, an excellent example to show you what to expect, what we're looking for. This is what we're talking about here. Set yourself up some kind of nail. Make sure the recording surface is flat, and then like every hour or two, go out and just mark where the very tip of that shadow was. And what I like to do is, if I got a nail like that, I just make a little caret over the nail. And you don't want to put a big fat mark on there. You want to be very precise with marking that tip. We want to know really, hopefully, exactly where that point was. So if you want to stick a little bobby pin right in the point, that seems to work good. Or if you want to take a pencil and make a little caret or a little arrow kind of around the tip of that shadow, that's what I do, and that works well for me. But you definitely want to make sure you're recording it as fine as possible. And then, so the most important mark of the day is going to be your first mark of the day, and then your last mark of the day. Those are your most important marks of the day. You want to get as early in the morning as possible and as late in the evening as possible. And then you're what we're looking for is we're going to be comparing to these middle marks. So once you get your first mark of the day and your last mark of the day, you want to draw a straight line from that first mark to the last mark. This is so important for people like me who are going to be trying to process this data in a short amount of time and like give people updates like were you seeing the straight line or not. So when you collect your data and you've got your first point of the day and your last point of the day, you want to connect that line between the first point and the last point and ignore all these other points in between. You don't want to pull a string and wrap it around or drape it over or hang it over or around these other points here. If you stuck pins in the board or whatever, you want to pull a straight line from this point all the way to this point, ignoring these points between. So you kind of think of it as like a bow and arrow. So you've got the curve, like Robin Hood. You've got a curve, you've got a bow, and you want to pull the string to complete that bow and arrow. So the string is going to run away from this curve. And so only on the day of the equinox we're we're going to see these midday points in here are actually on that line that we pulled. On the other days, they're going to be slightly above or slightly below. But it's so important for us analyzing the data to do it efficiently. When you put your straight edge on your data set, or when you pull your string from that first point of the day to the last point of the day, do it straight from point to point. Don't let it get caught up or hung up, or even don't even pay attention to what these other points are doing. Just make sure it's straight between that point and that point. And then take a good picture of it, and we will be looking to see where are these midday points. Did they land on the line, or are they above or below the line? So anyway, I'm just going to, well, I guess while I'm talking about it, the other group that I'll be trying to post live, well, at least daily reports to will be this Facebook group, or sorry, this YouTube channel, and both of them are Faith Child, or well, I guess the Facebook on Facebook, I'm Faith Child too. But so anyway, back to this document. I'm just going to go through the highlights real quick. This is kind of a checklist, trying to describe everything you need to know about sundials here, but the most important things are in red. So if you want more detail, you can read everything else, but the most important things are in red. So let's see. You'll want to make sure the ground you're recording your mark on is flat. So we can't have like rolling paper and warped ground, or it's got to be flat. It doesn't have to be perfectly level, but it does need to be flat. So you can read through some of these other tips here. You need to, like I said, you need to accurately mark the tip of the object casting the shadow. Like, you don't want to use a big marker. I mean, some people can. We'll talk about that in a moment. Like, if you get a wide spread of data, like if you're one of those people who's blessed and you're able to actually get like 10 to 12 hours of data collected, then you can kind of get away with bigger marks just using like just a marker. uh, you get a bigger ball for your mark, and in a bigger spread of data, it works out like that because the curve is more pronounced. Like this curve we were talking about, it's really the early morning and the late evening points where the curve and the hook are most pronounced. And so, I mean, if you're able to collect data really early in the morning or late in the evening, that's when uh, uh, sometimes you can get away with using bigger markers. I would say anywhere from like 10 to 12 hours is where you can get away with bigger markers. Otherwise, if you're less than 10, I definitely encourage you to mark the tip of the object casting the shadow as accurately as possible. Use a fine pin, or kind of trace a caret around the tip of your nail or whatever it is you're using. Um, okay, whatever object you choose for your sundial, make sure it is sturdy. Okay, so you don't want anything to happen to your recording surface. So if we just use this recent example from from Maui. I did see pictures where this data was more spread out, but it kind of looks like something was going on a little bit. It looks like, see, these marks are bigger, so we do want to make sure, and that's good. He's showing us what time. And you don't have to put all these timestamps if you don't want to. What's most important is you show us the timestamp for the first mark of the day, show us the timestamp for the last mark of the day. We need to know that so we can confirm, like, what are we looking at? Are you sending us 8 hours of data, or is it one of those 10 or 12 hours of data? Like, it helps us to assess like how how pronounced we're expecting this curve to be, um, and how reliable your data is. Because sometimes if you only have like 6 or 8 hours of data, you might be seeing what appears to be a straight line on multiple days. And so if people are like, oh yeah, I saw a straight line for 3 or 4 days in a row, but I only collected 6 hours of data each day, that is probably why. So it's important for us to be able to see that immediately. Like, did you get, the minimum is like 8 to 10 hours, really 9 to 10 hours minimum. I mean, if you can't get that much, just do whatever you can. Do the best you can, but really, it helps at least like 9 to 10 hours if at all possible. Um, But yeah, anyway, it looks like some of these points might have been a little in and out, uh, and I don't know. You should see a nice smooth curve, and I guess this does look something looks like it skipped a little right here, but you should see a very nice bow. It should be a very symmetrical looking bow, a nice curve. And if it's kind of like a wiggly curve, then something might have happened, like maybe the paper might have moved, the border setup might have get bumped. Like if you're using paper, maybe it got damp or humid and it crinkled up on you a little bit. Like there's a lot of little things that can happen. So that is just an important point. You want to make sure whatever object you choose to record your surface on, it's not changing, it's not getting bumped, it's not moving during the day that you collect data. From day to day, like one day, day one, day two, day three, you can have a whole new setup that's in a different location. But when you start recording for the day, that setup in that location needs to be sturdy and it can't move for the entire day you're collecting data. Um, So the location, you will want to pick a spot in your yard or somewhere that you're able to collect a minimum of 9 to 10 hours of data in a single day from the first point of the day to the last point of the day. And the most I've seen people be able to collect is somewhere around 12 hours in like the flatlands. That's like optimal. But it seems like it's very clear if you're able to get close to 10 hours of data, it's very easy to see, are you getting a curve pattern or are you getting a straight line pattern? But again, just do the best you can. But it's definitely important for us to see the timestamp of your first mark of the day and your last mark of the day. And it's also useful for you to show us where solar noon is. Like, so you got one timestamp for the first mark, one timestamp for the last mark, and then give us at least one more timestamp for the midday mark. So we can see, okay, that's the one that should be the farthest away from the line when you draw your line between the first and last points of the day. So yeah, try to you want to just be looking out in your yard and during sunrise. Where is a spot around your property that's getting the first rays of sunlight, and then in the evening you'll want to go out and check, make sure that spot is getting the same spot is getting sunlight in the evening, and then also around midday that spot is getting sunlight on it, and you'll want to try and collect points in between there, but at the minimum, here's the next point here. At a minimum, you need to collect 3 data points. One as early in the morning as possible, one as late in the evening as possible, and one more around midday or solar noon. That is the bare minimum. If you want to collect every hour in between, that's fine, but those are the 3 critical minimum points that we need to collect. A few more red comments here. Okay, from your first data point of the day to the last data point. Uh, Okay, that's what I've been explaining, and so we've been practicing with a lot of truth seekers this past year, and that's just a common thing I'm seeing. It seems people aren't exactly sure what they should be doing, and a fair amount of them just like write a line or a string, or they're like connecting a line between all their points over the course of the day, but that unfortunately doesn't help us to analyze the data. We need to see a straight line, a string, or a straight edge connecting the first point of the day to the last point of the day. Ignore all the other points. Just give us some kind of line, a straight line between the first point and the last point of the day, and then we can compare those midday points to see if they're on that line that you drew or if they're away from the line. And here, highly recommended that you try to collect 3 days of data back to back to see the 3 shadow patterns. So let's see, where's an example of that? These 3 shadow patterns. So before the equinox event, you're going to see one curve, and then on the equinox event, you're going to see a straight line, and then the day following the equinox event, you're going to see this flipped curve. So ideally, it's nice if you can collect data on all 3 days to see all 3 of those patterns. And if you miss a day, don't give up. It's still very helpful if you're able to get any of these days, 1, 2, or 3, because we can coordinate with different people around the world to see, oh, okay, yeah, you weren't seeing the straight line on this day, or maybe you saw the curve on this day, but you didn't see the straight line. Like it's still useful. So around the time of the equinox, which is going to be somewhere between, looks like this year, between March 18th through the 21st, it could be happening. It looks like try to collect. Even if you miss a day, go ahead and try and collect the other days because it can really help. Um, and then, okay, yeah, so here's the 3 days of running data. I think we just got a couple more points here. Okay, yeah. Be sure to snap a picture of your entire data set with a camera having a good picture quality, high resolution. Like we need to be able to see your data, to share it with other truth seekers, and help people to understand what to make of the data. So I think I've talked about the straight line between the first point of the day and last point of the day. I've talked that through enough. When you've got that straight line pulled, either with a string or with a straight edge, you need to take a picture of the entire data set. And if we're not like too close to the equinox event, or if we're still like a day or two away, or if you've got like those really early morning points and late evening points, you got like 12 hours of data, sometimes it's just very clear that your midday point is not on the line yet, and a single picture of the entire data set is fine. You can see that the midday point is not on the line yet. But if it's really close, then it's helpful for you to take close-up pictures. So if it is really close, when you pull your string and it's really close and hard to tell if that midday point is actually on the line or it's really close, what you want to do is you want to take that picture of your entire data set with the string pulled or the straight line, the straight edge, kind of making your line between the first and last points of the day. And then once you got that set up, take a picture of the entire thing and then zoom in close and take a close-up picture of the midday mark with respect to the to the string that you pulled. So just get real close and take a picture of that midday mark compared to the string, so we can see real close, like how far is that midday mark from the string? Is it right on, or is it slightly above or slightly below? And then also take a real close picture of how you had that string or the straight edge tying into your first mark of the day and your last mark of the day. Like take a picture of those 3 points up close: the first mark of the day, the midday mark, and the last mark of the day. Take them up real close so we can compare. Again, if it was a really close call, if you can take a single picture and it's just clear that the midday points are not on the line, then that works fine. And sometimes it's hard to take a picture like directly overhead, but if you kind of put your camera kind of down like near your first point of the day or last point of the day, and you look sideways across instead of straight down on your data, you're kind of looking sideways across your data. Sometimes you can get a picture of all the data in one shot like that, especially if you're doing something big like out in your yard or something. So the last thing I'll say, the last big point is I do recommend you put a little bit of practice in before the event. Don't wait until the last minute, because inevitably it seems there's always a few bugs to work out. There's just something you forgot, or just you got to make sure your board is oriented. Like some people pick a board like a Sundial board, a 2x8 or a 2x10 or something, and they accidentally make the mistake of aiming that thing right at the rising sun near the equinox, and the problem with that is, uh, the sundial is only going to be able to collect probably half a day of data, because your marks are going to end up running off the board, because the shadow pattern is, the straight line is going to cast a shadow pretty close to like due east and west orientation. And unless you live right on the equator, you don't want to be orienting your board at the rising sun, because that's, unless you live at the equator, the rising sun near the time of the equinox, it's not going to be due east and due west from your location. So if you're out there like a few days before the equinox event and you collect one day of data, it's just a good check to make sure that your board is oriented correctly, so you'll actually get data for that full day. So I think that's it for now. Again, there are a few more links in here. Even in this document, I have the link for the Dropbox folder where you can find things, all the data, the name of the Facebook group, and here just a couple sample videos of what you can expect to see from the reports that are going to be going out. And here's a little discussion about the Creators International Dateline. That's an important thing to be aware of and understand with the straight line, and why different people around the world potentially might end up seeing the straight line on two different Gregorian dates. Actually, it looks like this year there's the potential everyone might see it on a single date, the same Gregorian date. I've never seen that before, but it looks like there's a chance that might happen. It looks like the Creators International Dateline might actually land near the Man-Made International Dateline this year. So we'll just have to wait and see. But otherwise, normally other years, people end up seeing the straight line on two different days. So if you want more information about that, the link for the video is here. Other than that, please feel free to reach out to me directly with any Sundial questions, and please feel free to send your Sundial data to me directly at this email, avoiceoftruthandlove@gmail.com, or you can share it directly to this Facebook group, and I will collect it to the shared folder, so everything's like organized. If anyone has any questions after the fact, we can drill in and go to the exact date and the exact year, the exact date, and look to quickly pinpoint when people were seeing what. So yeah, I looking to get out there and practice a little, and please, yeah, just have fun with it, and looking forward to hopefully more and more people doing this. So shalom, and may Allah bless you as you continually seek out His truth in love with a pure heart.